Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't.
Imagine two students in college. One is a gay male and the other is a straight super jock. The gay male is quiet and introverted, and the straight guy is extroverted to the point of being loud and so into the old joke of throwing something at a person and shouting, "Think fast!" Can you imagine these two guys being friends? How about dear friends for 40 years? Let's make it a little more interesting still. The straight guy would become a high-achieving Navy SEAL. And he would also be the guy to help his gay friend express his emotions more fully. Will Schwalbe wrote a beautiful memoir chronicling his friendship with Chris Maxey and very intimate details on how each man supported the other. The book is called We Should Not Be Friends, and it has received acclaim from seemingly every major news outlet and was even named a New Yorker Best Book of the Year. Those of you who know me know that I care a great deal about friendship, and this book hit a grand slam. So I can't wait for you to hear my conversation with Will Schwalbe as we talk about friendship. Will Schwalbe, a hearty welcome to Super Psyched.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be talking to you.
I can't believe it. After all this time, I've been so excited to meet with you and geek out to your book, which is unputdownable. I believe I listened to it twice, and the only thing I had trouble with was you're such a good writer. I had envy. I mean, like incredible amounts of envy. Like, how did you do it? But it was a perfectly told story. Totally relatable, very, very introspective, and very self-revealing. And the vulnerability of your explorations in this book really will leave the reader, or listener in my case, with a visceral and long-term half-life of wisdom. So I just can't thank you enough for having written it.
Wow, Adam, thank you. That is one of the nicest introductions I've ever had, because I love that you talked about the writing. So thank you. When you write memoir, people review your life. They never talk about it as words on a page. So I'm thrilled to be talking with you. I love your podcast, but I'm particularly thrilled with that intro. So thank you.
Oh, right on, my brother. And just the entire idea, like, what an important book at this moment in time where things are so polarized and people rush to judgment. You start with this beautiful quote on First Impressions from Gentlemen in Moscow, and how we can be so easily misled in our haste to make judgment, and that somebody with whom you would ostensibly have nothing in common, you were able to find spectacular confluence over time, and both of your lives, kind of to borrow from Wicked, both of you are better for having known each other.
Yeah, we were changed for good, to quote Wicked again. The situation, as you know, was I was in this secret society at college at Yale. 15 of us chosen because we were the most different kids. I came into it thinking, I know everybody I need to know. I've got it. I have my circle. I was this out gay kid. I was a classicist. I did theater. So I knew those people. And I knew who I didn't want to know. And those were these menacing jocks. This was the early 80s. The jocks and the gays were not a natural combo. So I stayed away from the jocks, and I got to this secret society, 15 most different kids they could find at Yale, most different from one another, representing all different kinds of communities and interests. And I kind of, to use today's word, vibed with everybody except this one jock, Chris Maxey. And he was a prototypical jock. He had these arms that were so big, he had to cut a V in his Lacoste shirt to get his arms through them. And he was rowdy and obnoxious, and he threw beers at your head and said, "Think fast." And he was kind of bouncing around the hall, is what we called the place we met, this huge stone tomb. And I thought, hell no. And the book is about our 40-year friendship, as you know, but it's also about the fact that he was definitely prejudiced against me, but I was way more prejudiced against him. And I made all these assumptions about who he was and what his values were, and I was wrong. And he's now been my friend for 40 years. And I would not be the person I am without him.
Let's get into how exactly can a person do that? If you were to say, these are some of the tips for befriending someone who is ostensibly so different from yourself, here are some of the things that you can do to increase the likelihood of a 40-year friendship with two counterintuitive friends.
Well, the first thing that I realized as I tried to systematize our friendship and figure out ways that it could apply to all different people in all different situations is that I don't believe that you can be friends with anyone. So I'm not out there, Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, saying, kumbaya, we can all be friends with one another. What I profoundly believe is you can be friends with anyone who shares your values, and that a lot more people share your values than you might think. But it's very easy to write people off because of where they come from, how they look, how they talk, where they went to school, where they didn't go to school, what kind of job they have or don't have. A million things cause us to write people off. And I know this is your field of psychology, but I believe that a lot of that is Darwinian, that we evolved to make snap decisions about people, friend or foe. And so we are primed to gravitate towards people who look, talk, seem like us, and to hold at arm's length or more anybody who seems like an other. Now, how can you get over that practically? Because you won't know if someone shares your values unless you get to know them and unless you see them in action. Because I believe values are not what you say, they're how you behave in the world. And I know a lot of people who spout things that make it seem like they have great values. And then you go to a restaurant with them and you see how they treat the server. And you think to yourself, this person does not share my values. That is not how I would treat another human being. So the most important thing is you just got to increase the number of people you meet. And there's a very simple way of doing that, which is hard if you're an introvert, and I'm an introvert, which is talk to people. And I'll tell you the very first place to start. It's very counterintuitive. If you're the person who gets on an airplane and you pull out your book and you put on your don't bother me headset, I'm not going to talk to you, you will never meet the person next to you who could be your next best friend. So you take off the earphones for a second, put the book down. It's very American. I know people in the rest of the world make fun of us, but whatever. You say to the person, hey, are you headed out to Chicago on your first trip or are you going home? If they don't want to talk to you, they'll put on their headsets and pull out their book and you're done. But a lot of times I find people do want to talk. They're interesting. They have tales to tell. And that's how you might meet your next best friend.
That's such a great point. And the reason I said we have to, in terms of making these snap judgments, is historically, our brains really needed to make these quick, biased decisions to determine friend or foe for our safety. No longer really applies. And I love that you basically say, don't just listen to what they say, watch what they do, because they may say they value X, Y, or Z and virtue signal all over the place, but they could be jerks and they could aspire. But an aspiration is not really a lived value.
An aspiration is not a lived value. And there are plenty of people with needle-pointed pillows.
Accessory posters.
Or accessory posters that express a value that they would like to have, and God bless them for that, but they don't actually have. And one of the magic things about this secret society we were in, we had to have dinner twice a week together and could never miss. And so you got to see people day after day, week after week over the course of a year. And that's where you find out who people are. That's where you really find out.
This is such a profound, like Breakfast Club on steroids operation. And when you read this, you'll realize that there's a host of techniques, including just having a space that is nobody's and everybody's at the same time. And you show up, whether you want to or not. You might actually be in no mood to be a part of this secret society on that particular night, but you still show up. You might not want to reveal certain parts of yourself, but you do. And there are so many things that go on. I'm still dying to know what might be some other things that people can do. I know that one of the things that you need to do is increase the total number of people that you meet and be more open to meeting, and perhaps hit Control Alt Delete if you're a little bit more of an introvert and say, I'm going to override my system tendencies and just lean into this American thing of talking to the person next to us, which, by the way, I wear the red, white, and blue on that one really strong. I think it's great. God bless America. That's good.
So other things about this opportunities to see people again and again and again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
One of them are the classic things, and there's a famous book called Bowling Alone, but about the shift in American life from bowling leagues to just bowling alone, and how that tore at the fabric of American life. So any group activity like that, can you join a bowling league that still exists? Can you, if you like birding, are there a bunch of birders where you live? If you belong to a church, are there church groups? And I think one of the most powerful ways to put yourself amongst other people and get to see them in action and see if they share your values is any kind of joint volunteering group.
That is so good.
And for example, my husband for a while volunteered at something called SAGE, Senior Action in a Gay Environment. And it was for older gay and lesbian queer people in the community. And the younger volunteers, who granted were no spring chickens themselves, would get together once a month and create a party that was kind of like a school dance. They would put ribbons up and they would bring in music and they would make brownies and make a big party, like a dance for older members of the community. And what was amazing was to see the camaraderie among the volunteers first, and then among the volunteers and the clients, the older members of the community. And it was just a beautiful thing. And after a while, who's a volunteer? Who are they serving? Who's being served? Doesn't matter. Everybody is finding new friends, forging relationships. And what better way to see someone's values in action than volunteering together for something you believe in?
Could not agree more. Some of the best friends I've made as an adult has been volunteering to serve on a board. And you see the values in action. The fact that we're all there. We may have different professions, maybe slightly different political leanings, and a host of other different variables. But the fact that we care enough at the end of a long day to say, I'm going to show up and bring the best part of my brain to this project, the best part of my heart, and really, really deliver and see how you play together in that sandbox. Like that is how adults, I believe, broker friendship. And I think volunteerism is the best spot too.
I love that example, Adam, because the other really important thing about a board meeting, for example, or a volunteer commitment is you're showing up again and again and again. And I think what's important for making friendships is we have to create environments where we can be our best selves, but we also can from time to time, not.
Right.
And so if you show up at that board meeting and one day you are a little abrasive and maybe you interrupt people, or maybe you're short, or maybe someone says something, you're like, we tried that before, that didn't work. And they may go away thinking, that Adam, I don't know about that Adam.
He kind of low-key sucks.
Yeah, kind of low-key sucks. But they have to see you 3 days later and you have the chance to redeem yourself.
That's right.
You can go into that meeting and say, wow, I was not my best self last week. I'm taking a course of self-improvement here, but I appreciate your sticking with me. And I love that we're on the same team. And I think so many of the activities where we're putting ourselves in the way of other people are set up so that if just one day we're not our best selves, the whole thing just dissipates. And you can never make a true friend, I believe, unless you have the freedom sometimes to be not your best self.
So let's unpack that David Whyte quote that I happen to have on high authority that you love.
I love.
Do you mind sharing it really quick?
Oh,
English poet. We can take a moment.
So the David Whyte quote, and he's a marvelous poet, philosopher. All friendships of any length are based on a continued mutual forgiveness. Without tolerance and mercy, all friendships die. David Whyte.
Amen, my brother. Like you're speaking that part. Everyone at a board meeting that I went to, maybe with one or two exceptions, at one point kind of showed us their ass. At some point, just a little bit. And the fact is, we all powered through it, loved each other on the other side. And one of the things that we really got to know was, do people deliver when they say they're going to deliver? Are they reliable? Do they respond to emails on time? Do they carry out the projects that they say they're going to carry out? And you find out about that one big value called integrity that everybody values, but no one can define, but you see it and you know it. Is there integrity here? Are they reliable? Are they honest? Are they deceiving themselves and others or not? And on this board, it was a spectacular kind of convergence, in my opinion, of integrity. Like I saw it.
The integrity part, I love what you're saying. That's music to my ears, because that is something that you look for in friends and fellow board members. But the other thing you look for is people who will forgive us our trespasses.
100%. Which I think is a part of integrity, isn't it?
Part of the integrity is when we fall short, if our value is integrity, if our value is to deliver, not only does a friend forgive us them, but also a friend might help us get at the cause. So I feel like the friend move is, Adam, man, you're amazing. You always deliver everything you say you're going to do exactly when you're going to. And this one, you really messed this one up.
You missed the target, dude.
But tell me, is there something going on in your life? Are you okay? Be real with me. Let me know what's happening. I want to help. Let's forget about this thing. That one's in the past. But if I can help you, give a shout. And so I think giving each other the opportunity for tolerance, forgiveness, mercy is a really powerful way we make true friends. And if we're not vulnerable, if we're like, just, no, it's fine, everything's fine, I messed that one up, but it's never going to happen again, you're robbing someone of giving the opportunity to be real for you, to be there for you, to help you. And you're robbing yourself of the chance to make a deep friendship as opposed to a superficial one.
Right, where all of our parts can show up. And one of the things that you're really indirectly speaking to is that when we screw up, we need to own it. It's not just like, I'll never do it again, but it's like, yeah, I missed the mark. I love the term repent for its ancient meaning. You're nodding because I think you know what it means, that it's an old archery term is my understanding. And it means I missed the target. Repenting is taking another shot at the target. And I think that we're all meant to repent as it's originally intended. In that sense, I'm not talking about like some kind of religious dogmatism, but I'm talking about the ability to say, wow, yeah, missed the target. I see that. I'm going to try again. And I think that a good friend will also say, yeah, you got a boogie hanging from your nose. Your zipper's undone, or you got a little bit of lettuce on your tooth. Maybe don't go into that presentation like that. A friend does not share some kind of folie à deux where it's like the emperor's new clothes and says, yeah, you're ready to run that speech when it's not really ready to be run.
And I have a very important covenant with all of my friends that I make explicit. I talk about it, which is, I say, and Adam, I consider you a new friend.
I want to be your friend, Will.
So I'm gonna give you my covenant, which is, if you ever do anything that ticks me off, I'm going to tell you right in the moment. I'm not going to hold a grudge. I'm not going to tell you a year later. I'm going to say, Adam, you just said or did this thing and you upset me. And then you have the chance to make amends should you choose or not. But the other part of that covenant is you have to do the same for me. It has to be bilateral. So you have to promise that when I do or say something obnoxious or something that hurts your feelings or is to ill effect, you got to tell me right away, like, Will, that thing, I didn't like that thing. And that gives me the chance to make amends in the spot at the moment.
And I love that covenant. And what a great word. It really kind of speaks to how sacred friendship is. I think of the I and thou from Martin Buber rather than I and it. This is a sacred thing. And it almost seems, based on your story about you and Chris Maxey, that covenant was a byproduct of stuff that went down between you and him, at least in part. And he got mad at you for things that you didn't know that he'd gotten mad at you for. And there was something really non-Edwardian in the way he spoke to you, but very, very direct, modern American, like, hey, didn't like this. And it was really important for you to experience that, perhaps as, let's just say it, as a man who had to live a somewhat secretive life during a very homophobic era when you could not really share your full self. And it seems like one of the things that was a gift of you and Maxey was he allowed you to be more real in this way.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. mean, growing up as a gay kid in the 70s and early 80s, when I came of age, I was born in 1962. So I was a real child of the 70s. It is very hard now for people who didn't live through that era to realize the extent of legal discrimination and hatred that was directed towards gay and lesbian people. And to such an extent that you really came out at your peril. There was always the hint and possibility of violence and certainly ridicule and certainly cutting yourself off from any kind of career path that you might aspire to, with very few exceptions. So you learned to hide and you learned to not show your true self, because your true self could get you in a world of pain. And so coming of age at that time, I had internalized that to a degree that only in recent years, and only really by writing this book, did I realize the full extent of it. That's one cause of hiding your true self. But actually, a lot of people grow up hiding their true selves. And maybe it's because a parent or sibling ridiculed them, or maybe it's because they grew up in one kind of community and it just didn't fit who they were. There are millions of reasons that people hide their true selves. But when I got to be friends with Maxey over the years, it was so ingrained that I continued the behavior. And in the book, I write about the one or two times he really called me out for it. And the most major one, and this was a real turning point in our friendship, is Maxey had undergone a terrifying operation for a brain tumor. And in fact, his biological father had died from a cystic growth in the brain. And it was a big operation. It wasn't a cancerous tumor, but it was a tumor that was life-threatening. And the operation certainly was scary. And Maxey shared everything with me. And he gave me the gift of being able to be there for him. I had the gift of being able to be in the hospital with him when he woke up. I had the gift of being able to help him walk down the hallway uneasily. I had the gift from him of hearing his fears and concerns. At the same time, I had received a diagnosis for a strange neurological condition.
That's right.
Rare, not fatal, but debilitating. And I thought to myself, I remember thinking, well, Maxey has this huge thing and I have this other thing, and I just won't bother him with that. I'm just going to deal with this thing by myself. He doesn't need to know about it. I'll just keep that to myself. I'll hide that. And when he found out that I had not told him of something serious that I was going through, he was as mad as he had ever been at me. And I realized in that moment that what I thought was bravery was selfishness. And I had robbed him of the opportunity to be the friend to me that I had been to him. And in that weird kind of paradox, had actually not been a very good friend.
Okay, so this was a turning point in the book. That was such a big aha moment for you, but I think for all humans who wish to engage in friendship. And it's something I would definitely endorse. I'm a big fan of friendship. That idea of lionizing the wrong thing, imagining that holding it in, withholding it is brave, when in fact it denies the other person the opportunity to be useful and serve the friend.
Yeah. And of course, there's balance in everything.
Of course.
But especially, and it's going to be a very gendered statement, so I apologize, because all gendered statements are true to some degree and not true to other degree. But in our culture at the time, Adam, when you and I were growing up, and I know you're younger, but we're in the same kind of era, roughly, one of the virtues assigned to people who were born men was that we did not share our troubles. We did not share our feelings, our problems. We held them in. And that was taught to us. That's what a man is.
Think about this for a second. Let's do a thought experiment. Think about the last time you drank a ton of water and had to pee really bad. And imagine trying to carry out an athletic endeavor or an intellectual one of giving a really good speech while you had to take a really massive piss. Is that virtuous? I mean, like, it makes a good story on the other side at the bar, but I don't think it's particularly virtuous. I think it's more virtuous to say, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go pee and then I'm going to come back and do this thing.
Yeah.
No one would think twice about that, I hope. We're meant to hold in our pain and suffering and have this solipsistic existence around that. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and be this rugged individual and die alone in a Clint Eastwood film. Like, dude, no, maybe not.
And I love your metaphor because not only would it be painful and awkward to try to do that while you were holding in a gallon of water, you wouldn't do the thing very well.
You wouldn't do it well at all.
Mess up your performance. You would give a terrible speech. You would be a terrible athlete. So that culture of bottle it up, keep it inside at any cost, if you're a guy, has been really corrosive. And there's a marvelous book by Deborah Tannen, a great linguist, and it was called You Just Don't Understand: Men and Women in Conversation. I'm sure you know.
I remember that book, yeah.
And she writes about how, again, this is a generalization, but in the era we grew up in, boys were taught to define their friends as the people they did things with.
100%.
Girls were taught to define their friends as the people they told things to. So this idea of telling things to your friends as opposed to doing things with your friends is a big thing for guys, especially of a certain age, to learn. But I find, which is really inspiring, I'm 61, Maxey's 61, the book ends when we're 60. And when you get near the end of your career, you start to realize, man, I need friends, I want friends. And you do almost naturally just start to share more with your friends. But if I had one message to people younger than me, it's like, don't wait till you're 60.
Instead, what should you do?
You should share and encourage your friends to share. And it sounds kind of dorky.
Totally.
But there's also, I believe it's especially important around certain subjects that are taboo among guys of a certain kind. And I'll tell you one that may resonate very deeply with you.
Bring it on, man.
I am very purposeful in saying around my guy friends, especially the kind of more macho butch guy friends, oh, my therapist said the most interesting thing the other day, or, oh, man, I got to go. I'm going to my therapist, or, yeah, that's right around the corner from where my therapist's office is. To try to normalize this idea that it's a good thing to go to a therapist. There's nothing shameful. There's nothing wrong.
And nothing bothers me more than a fellow therapist who doesn't do their own therapy. Like, I'm a huge fan of providing therapy and receiving it. I've often referred to myself as the hair club for men dude as it relates to anxiety. It's like, not only do I treat anxiety, but I suffer from it very badly.
And I believe, I'm sure you found too, because this is your profession. And one of them is that if I were to say to a friend, oh man, you should go to a therapist.
Right.
But if I say, oh, my therapist said the most interesting thing to me, it's the same message. It just is a much more palatable way of getting it across.
Well, it's a way of saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's like, I do it. I'm walking the walk. I do it. And some women have described their own therapy as being more revelatory than going to the gynecologist. Like, it's very, very, very intense and personal. Yeah. And sometimes you say things that you've never said before. And oh my God, did I really just say that with a witness? And I survived. And I received some form of validation and witnessing. And now it doesn't plague me. It's no longer a rock in my shoe that I carry around virtuously throughout life. Like, oh, at least I'm walking with a limp. Let's maybe not. All stakeholders benefit when we have fewer rocks in our shoe.
I love your metaphors. They're piling up in my head. I now have a full bladder and a rock in my shoe. I'm very uncomfortable. One of my parts of my own book that I like the most, but I'm going to say,
please do. Yeah, you can.
One of my parts of my book that I like the most is over the course of the book, because it's a 40-year friendship, I chronicle how Maxey meets this awesome surfer chick. And he meets her in a dive bar.
Yep.
And the funny twist, I won't give away too many of the funny twists, but this one's funny. He takes her, he's a naval officer, he's an officer in the Navy SEALs. That's how different we were. Maxey becomes an officer in the SEALs, and I become this AIDS activist, publishing, theater, writing dude. So he takes her to the Navy formal thinking she's going to be way out of place. And he finds out she's the daughter of an admiral.
Which is great.
And they have this classic thing, which is a refrain through the book. He says, why didn't you tell me? And she says, you didn't ask. He made assumptions about her because he met her, this surfer chick, in a dive bar, and never thought to himself, she could be an admiral's daughter. But at any rate, he marries her. They have 4 great kids whose names I can never remember until finally I remember their name. And then they go through a really, really tough divorce. Really, really I mean, divorces are difficult. This was a particularly difficult one for a lot of reasons. And he really confided over that time in me too. And my favorite twist in the book, and this is the only other one I'll give away, is some years later, he's coming to New York and he said, Schwalbes, I really want to celebrate with you. We met this other great friend, David Singer, who's a big character in the book.
By the way, love Singer. Folks, when you read this book, prepare to fall in love with Singer. He is so fun. Anyway, keep going.
So great. And so we're there. And Maxey, this is years after the divorce, says, I've been seeing this wonderful woman and I've asked her to marry me. And she said yes. And I say to him, Maxey, it's best news. I'm so happy for you. And I say, what do your kids think of her? And he says, well, they love her. She's their mother. And I thought for a second, like, I'm such a moron. I thought Pam was their mother. And then I'm like, oh my God, are you remarrying Pam? And he's like, yep, we've been dating on the sly and Pam has agreed to remarry me. And they've been together ever since. They have a great marriage. They're so great together. And I love that. And one of the cool things that made it possible was when they were getting divorced, all of these people told Max, you got to have a lawyer, you got to have a lawyer, you got to have a lawyer. And he went to the first lawyer and the lawyer said, tell me all the terrible things about Pam so I can use them against her. And he's like, we're not doing that. He said, this is the woman I love. She's the mother of my kids. I'm not doing it. And he represented himself in court. And he said to the judge, give her everything. She deserves it and more. They'd agreed on joint custody for the kids. And the actual divorce thing, I mean, it was difficult to get to that point. But the judge was like, are you sure? And he's like, yep. And because of that, I believe, and I think he believes, and I think Pam believes, although I don't want to speak too much for them, that allowed them to remarry years later and have this great relationship, even stronger for the trials that had been through. But again, on that subject, he allowed me to be there for him through all of that. And it not only strengthened our friendship, but it made possible a really powerful friendship between me and Pam, who I adore.
There are so many gifts in this book, and that was a part of the book that also causes my head to spin. Like when he said, of course, my kids love her. She's their mom. It was kind of like I almost tripped over my own feet when I heard that part. There's so much to this book that lends itself. I mean, if there was a song to accompany, it would have to be that song from Wicked. You're better for having known each other.
I must say, you're straight. They're going to take away my gay card by the Wicked song. So you got me in a world of trouble. But I'm
so sorry. I don't mean it. Gay community, please love Will. He did not mean to not be able to cite Wicked right and left, including its librettist. Anyway, guess where I'm going with this is he is not your best friend. And it's a really important note. He got married 3 times to the same woman. You were at none of those weddings. Yep. And it's not about him becoming your best friend. I think it's a really important note, but a formative friend, a friend who's made a difference, a friend who has changed your life and whose life you've changed.
That is so important to this book. I have extremely close friendships, and I always have, and I have best friends. And my best friends are very much like me. And Maxey and I became friends when we were at college, but over the last 40 years, there have been times when we've gone a decade without speaking, talking, writing each other. And yet always the friendship remained. And I really believe in these really fractious times we live in, people are defining themselves in increasingly narrow ways so that it's not only about I'm a this and you're a that. It's about I'm a this kind of this and you're a that kind of this. Never mind a that. And we could never be friends because of that. That I think this idea of a friendship can be strong, it can be powerful, it can change your life. And it doesn't have to be your best friend. We should be able to have a lot of friends, not an endless number, but a lot. And the thing about my friendship with Maxey that is one of the drivers of it is we're really relaxed in each other's company now. That after so many decades, friendship is a kind of love. And it's straight man, Navy SEAL, is much more comfortable talking about love between friends than I am. I still am freaked out because of my closeted gay upbringing. The people might misread it. I feel the need to say that I actually never was attracted to Max. He's a handsome guy, all American, but I always liked a different kind of person. My husband and I have been together 40 years. He looks nothing like Maxey. He is nothing like Maxey, although they get along like a house on fire. Friendship is a kind of love. A good friendship, you love your friends. And I always think, and this isn't a book I reference, but I always think about it, a very powerful book by Eric Fromm, The Art of Living.
So good.
And he uses this term, I think, if I remember it correctly, called relaxed awareness, where you're relaxed in the company of the person. You're not trying to impress them or get anything, but you're aware. You're not ignoring them. You're aware of their needs, their moods, their feelings. And that he talks about as the state to try to achieve in a love relationship that maybe has to do with a more intimate or paired off love relationship. But I also really believe that it's true among your friends. And to be able to cultivate a sense of relaxed awareness, there's nothing better. And Maxie and I have that. When we're in each other's company, sometimes we're having fun and being goofballs and drinking beers and laughing about old times. But we're now at the state where we can just be in each other's company. You just sit there. No one has to say anything. It's just we're aware of each other. We're thrilled to have the friendship, but we don't have to do anything. We can just be.
That's so interesting. I reignited a friendship that had been dormant. There were some feathers that were ruffled. And last week I called this particular person. And one of the things I noticed about being a friend to this man is there is what I've described as a hang-in vibe. We hang and we vibe. And I can't exactly quantify it. I can't really explain it. All I can tell you is there is an ease, there is a comfort. And it did require a little bit of that David White. It required some of that grace. It required some of that ability to forgive certain things that transpired that just didn't work for me. But there's a love.
Yeah.
And when you're describing Maxie, the thing that I'm hearing is there's a hang-in vibe. It's almost like vanilla Coke. It just works. It's just like a root beer float. It's just like, yeah, we're good together. And we don't need any embellishments. It's just right. We don't need to be doing anything any particularly interesting. It's just easy.
And part of that, I believe, is, yes, there is the talking to the person next to you on an airplane. That's awesome. I recommend that highly. It's really cool how often that works out.
That.
But there's also the picking up the phone and calling the old friend, the old neighbor, someone you have history with.
So I quote Stevie Wonder here, just call to say I love you. People think they need to have an agenda to call their friend. No agenda, just calling.
Yep.
That's it. Nothing.
Hey, I just called to say, hey, love you, man, which is still a hard thing for me to say. Maxie says it really easily. I'm like, ugh. But that's really powerful, as is, I believe, something that refers to your shared history. So you can call or you can send a text, which is just think about that time that Jimmy laughed so hard, Coke came out of his nose. Coke being Coca-Cola. Boom, hit send. They're like, do the little ha emoji. And that's that kind of hanging vibe. We have this connection. We have a shorthand. We have history. We get each other. We enjoy each other. And what I love about the spontaneous, I just called to say I love you kind of contact, is so much of our life these days now has to do with schedules. One of the things that drives me crazy as a human of a certain age is all of this. Hi, can I call you at 3:00 tomorrow? Oh no, 3:00 isn't good. How's 4:30 next week? No, can you call me at 5? It's like, oh my goodness, call me. What's the worst that happens? You get the answering machine. I get your message. I call you back. But certainly our childhood was you just called people.
That's exactly right. Remember that?
Hey, what's up? Want to go ride our bicycles? Yeah, sure. And I think friendship thrives on spontaneous contact too. When friendship is too scheduled, it's not really friendship.
So I'm going to go out on a limb. Will Schwalbe, I'm going to say that one of the best gifts, and as presumptuous as it may be for me to even attempt this, but I'm going to try it anyway, that Maxie gave you is that he showed you unequivocally, viscerally, that you are a lovable person.
Before I answer that, I'm going to tell you something, which is when I used to have authors, because I'm a book editor too, go on the Oprah Winfrey show, I'd hang back with the producers. And if Oprah made the person cry, we would high five each other. So you came really close there, Adam. I'm on the verge of tears, but I'm holding it in because I'm a 70s guy. Yeah, that's absolutely right. That was a gift. And it was part of the screwed upness of my childhood as a gay man in the 70s that in some kind of weird way, for me to believe it, it had to come from an archetypally straight dude like Maxey.
Who would be in the Navy SEALs, who would basically get a medal in the morning for track and then later win in lacrosse.
Yes,
guy.
He actually won the state track competition at 10 o'clock one morning in high school. And that afternoon, he captained his lacrosse team to the league championship same day. For growing up in a high school where I was class president, I was popular, I had friends, but I still steered a wide berth from the jocks.
Yep.
And the jocks were celebrated. They had their own table. I mean, I was at an Episcopal boarding school, but they were still the jocks. And to have this prototypical jock, who I later would come to learn is a profoundly good human being. He founded a school on the island of Eleuthera called the Island School. It's a magical place that teaches kids about the environment. It welcomes queer kids, including trans kids and kids of all religion. It's just this amazing place. But to have this particular person, say, I love you, man, and make me believe it was a powerful thing.
And it was not through any manipulation. You had evidence coming out your ears that it was real.
Yes, I did.
So let's talk about that, the conferring of love from that source. I'm thinking about in the old days, I believe one of the ways that rabbis would confer rabbinic powers upon another and say, you are now a rabbi, is they'd put two hands on the head, almost like back in the day. That's how fathers would bless their sons. There was something about getting two hands on the head metaphorically specifically from the ultra jock dude that healed that wound. So many people erroneously end up marrying their parents. The trope of the daughter of an alcoholic who marries an alcoholic man to save him.
Yeah.
The son of the critical mom who marries a super critical spouse. And in your case, this was kind of turning that on its face. It was like, this was a healthy version of that. This was actually getting the medicine from a guy who not only could deliver it, but deliver it in a healthful manner. This is turning that whole idea on its head.
Yeah. It's something that I never would have known I needed. And I could have gone through my whole life without finding, but I needed it and I found it. And I found it through that weird social experiment of putting 15 different kids together when they're in college. Mm-hmm. And it's so crazy. It shouldn't have worked, but it worked. And there's another kind of turning point in the book early on when the first seeds of our friendship are planted. They made us do this retreat. We all go off for a weekend to this cool house that an alumni owned and are left to our own devices. And a bunch of us had gone up, crammed in the back of these little cars that we'd rented. But Maxey had this big black Yamaha motorcycle.
Named
the bitch. I mean, that was Maxey.
I mean, he was kind of, in some ways, the Emilio Estevez character from Breakfast Club, a little bit.
He was Emilio Estevez in Breakfast Club a little bit, but also a little bit Andrew, the wrestler dude. He was like a combo.
Isn't that him?
Oh, that was Emilio. Yeah. Was that Emilio Estevez?
Yeah.
It was the Emilio Estevez.
Oh, you're thinking Judd Nelson. I see where you're going. Bender.
Yeah, no, he was much more Emilio Estevez.
Yeah, I was going full on jock. Anyway, keep going.
He was full on jock. Emilio, right? Oh my goodness. I've now failed both the lyric quiz and the Know Your John Hughes movie.
You will be redeemed.
I will be redeemed. Or repent, as we discussed. So,
I love you in spite of it, Will.
Thank you. So we went and crammed these little cars. Maxey goes on the bitch, almost wipes out and kills himself on the way there. Miraculously does not. On the way back, we've been drinking just ungodly sums and amounts of alcohol. I have the worst hangover. I'm drinking my Mr. Coffee, complaining about how bad the car trip's going to be going back. And Maxey's like, you're riding with me on the back of the bitch. And I tried to say, no, I'm freaking out. The next thing I know, Maxey's throwing a helmet at me. Think fast. Here I am. All of a sudden I'm out. Then I'm freaking out. Like, do I wrap my arms around him or not? If I don't, I'll die. If I do, he'll think I'm coming on to him. If I don't, he'll think that he'll think that I'm coming on to him. All these crazy mental gymnastics. But up we go.
I mean, I'm laughing. I'm sorry, but It's excruciatingly painful. I guess it's kind of that tragedy plus time makes comedy, but keep going.
Oh, yeah. It's intended as a sort of, I wrote it as a comic scene.
Yeah.
Because it was comic. So off we go, this terrifying, exhilarating, amazing motorcycle ride, so unlikely, and get back to campus. And decades later, almost 40 years later, I had the opportunity to say, Maxey, and this is all in the book, I'm like, I'm just curious, why'd you insist that I ride on the back of the motorcycle? And he said, I wanted you to like me, and I didn't think you liked me.
I remember that, but it's still kind of jaw-dropping just to hear you say it now.
And the idea back then that this legendarily talented, athletic, all-American jock on his way to a Navy SEAL career as an officer would care that this weedy little theater act up dude, I wasn't act up yet, it was Gay Men's Health Crisis, AIDS activist dude, that he would care that I liked him kind of blew my mind and still does. And that, I guess, is one of my big takeaways about friendship. By the way, Maxey's mother tells him not to say so often. So when I say, I think of Maxey's mom, because don't say, One of the takeaways is that more people want to be our friends than we might imagine. And when we don't reach out and don't put ourselves in vulnerable situations, we don't only rob ourselves of having friends, we rob other people of our friendship. And you just have to learn to believe that your friendship is valuable and is something worth sharing.
Before I ask my final question, I remember being at one of these parties where we're all supposed to share like a secret. And one of the old school guys, for his secret, decided to be cheeky and said, if I told you my secret, I'd have to kill you. And that's literally all he shared. That was he decided to use his moment on that old crappy joke. None of us felt closer to this guy. It's struck me as such a classical squandering potential. So I hold that soundbite as like, don't do that. Don't do that. Press on.
And that is something about that kind of shticky joke or cliche is it is a tactic for keeping people at arm's length.
Exactly.
What you really want to say to a guy like that, it would sound obnoxious, but if you said it genuinely, maybe not, is who hurt you?
Wow. That's exactly it. And it comes from shame, as you were saying. Shame, as Brene Brown reminds us, is like, causes us to hide.
Yeah.
And what we need is, in that moment, empathy. Yeah, I was quietly pissed with that. But had I come at him with some compassion, maybe even pulled this guy aside, I wasn't close enough to do that. But yeah, it would have been interesting to have said, hey, man.
Who hurt you? It might not have been received.
Yeah, he probably would have kicked me in the nuts, but
he probably would have. So I actually as I am in the very fortunate position of having younger people call me and ask me career advice, and I very often end by saying everything I told you to. Don't listen to me. Like, if it works, great. But there I said, again, so Maxie's mom is going to be so mad. If it works, great. But you got to find your own way. And there is that thing about friendship. We talked about it as love and we talked about things, but actually what I think at the end of the day is it's a kind of alchemy. It's a kind of magic. It's the two things that just go together. And Reese's peanut butter cups, why do they work? I don't know. They do.
And why does Nutella work possibly even better?
Exactly. So there is a certain amount of gratitude that we can find people in the world that we can vibe with.
Okay, bro, I got to tell you, Will, I love that you use the word alchemy. That's it. That's the word. I asked you for the secret. What is the step-by-step approach? It's meeting a large number of people and seeing, is there a there? Yeah. And not jumping to conclusions. If you have the ability to exhume that quote from Gentleman in Moscow, it's so unbelievably good. I don't know if you have it nearby.
I do. I'd be delighted to read it.
Absolutely. Like, this is the quote that I think we all need to keep in mind. I'm forgetting it.
Here's the quote. It's a long quote from Amor Tolls. After all, what can a first impression tell us about someone we've just met for a minute in the lobby of a hotel? For that matter, what can a first impression tell us about anyone? Why, no more than a chord can tell us about Beethoven or a brushstroke about Botticelli. By their very nature, human beings are so capricious, so complex, so delightfully contradictory, that they deserve not only our consideration, but our reconsideration and our unwavering determination to withhold our opinion until we've engaged with them in every possible setting at every possible hour.
Could there be a better quote about you and Maxey, or really for the potential of so many friends? And what makes me sad is just within a mile radius of my house, there are dozens of possible great friends whom I will never know.
Yes, but that's the sadness. But on the other hand, there's the joy of going out every day saying, maybe today I'm going to meet a friend.
So good. Well, is there anything I haven't asked you but should have?
Adam, I love this interview so much. I could keep talking to you forever, but no, I think you covered all the bases. We got it all.
All right, William Schwalbe, my final magical question. If you had the powers to confer upon all humanity one insight or skill that would improve the lives of the individual and perhaps even society at large, what would that insight or skill be? And how do you imagine it would impact the individual as well as perhaps society at large?
The skill would be true empathy. The skill would be the magical ability when talking to someone to be able to experience life, even for just a few seconds, from inside their head and see the world the way they see it. And I think that one skill could save the world. And I will put in a plug for the one thing that I believe can cultivate that skill, and that is reading fiction.
I've heard about this, by the way. Can you justify it? Because I think I have one of the reasons, one of the answers.
And memoir. I'm going to throw memoir into that thing because I write memoir
and fiction.
We do throw memoir into the same thing. So an extraordinary part of this secret society that we didn't yet talk about is the fact that each kid would present what was called an audit. And for anywhere from 3 to 7 hours, you would tell the other kids every single thing you could remember from your entire life. And the rules were that the other kids were to listen. They were to ask questions only out of genuine curiosity, and that the speaker was free to answer the questions or not. There were no why questions, because why questions sound like you're questioning someone's motives. And we learned these rules and we heard each other's stories. And that's what laid the groundwork for these powerful friendships, not just between me and Maxey, but amongst all of us. It was alchemy. So if you can't have that experience periodically throughout your life, what replicates it? And the thing that replicates it is fiction and memoir, spending anywhere from 60 pages to 1,000 pages looking at the world through someone else's eyes. Maybe it's a fictional character, a bunch of fictional characters, or maybe it's someone who lived a very different life from you and is writing that memoir. And the more you read it, it's a muscle. The ability to see the world through other people's eyes, you work out that muscle through fiction and memoir. So the thing I most hope for everybody is that sense of empathy. And there's only one way I know to get there, and that's read fiction and memoir. And especially, I'm going to put one more caveat on that. Read fiction and memoir by people who you are not interested in.
So you live by that. And I know that you even go out and do things that you're ostensibly not interested in to test yourself and to grow yourself.
Yeah. And I have this bookstore superstition that is, if I'm in a bookstore and I knock over a book, I have to buy it and read it because it's the universe telling me that I need that book. So that's how you come across stories and lives that you never dreamed would have interested you. And some of those crazy books that I knocked over have changed me forever.
Apparently, according to A.J. Jacobs, Alex Trebek once said, "I'm so curious about things. I'm interested in things I'm not even interested in."
I love that. Yes.
And I'm paraphrasing it poorly, but you live by that dictate. I love that superstition.
It applies to libraries. So if you knock over a book in a library, you can take it out. So it's both purchasing and borrowing. And one other thing I have to say about that, you sparked so many things to me, is some of my other best reading experiences. Have you ever crashed at a friend's house and they put like a couple of books on the bedside table for you?
One of them literally changed my life and causes me to be here today.
What book was that?
That would be Love's Executioner by Irv Yalom. Same thing happened.
That's what I'm talking about.
Dude, I'm going to flip the title of the book and say, Will, we should be friends.
And I'm going to just add a coda, as is my want. I think we already are.
I think we already are. A big hug to you, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with my listeners and with me. I'm definitely better for it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Adam. This was awesome.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.